Hello, I want to make some shaped wooden tools, so I needed a sharp knife to be able to cut the wood. And in looking around, most of the knives that I have are not really appropriate for cutting and carving wood, but two of them are. One of them is a new knife. It's this one, which was made by Dan Shuggy, and it's made with mahogany steel, and it has its little flaws in it to indicate that it truly is mahogany. But when Dan Shuggy made this for me, he told me that I would have to sharpen it and create the geometry I want. So that was understood. And it turns out that when I tried to use it for carving, it was a bit thick behind the edge. So that needed to be thinned. And then I looked at my other knives. This is an old knife that I've had for probably 40 years, made by Bud Hubbard a long time ago. It was Damascus ladder steel. And it too was very thick behind the edge. Not much good for cutting into, for carving wood and shaping it the way I wanted to do it. So I thought, well, how do I deal with that? I'm not going to put it on a grinder because that will not only damage the heat treatment, but it will, if it's a circular stone, it's going to make a concave bevel. And I didn't want that for cutting wood. So instead, what I did is I decided to do it by hand. Well, that turns out to be more of a job than I thought it was going to be. And it was a lot of grinding. How did I do that? Well, here you can see I've got a pile of stuff. I thought maybe one grinding stone and one polishing stone. No. I need a whole pile of tools and things to not only grind the geometry into the right shape, but then to polish the edge and make it truly sharp. Sharp enough not for shaving with, but sharp enough to be robust as it's cutting into wood. So that's probably not as sharp as a kitchen knife, but it's definitely sharper than an axe. So how did I go about it? Well, to start with, let's see. I started with some 220 grit sandpaper. Well, some of this. This is it's a 3M 180 grit stuff. This is very good for cutting. This is a silicon carbide paper. It looks gray, and normally silicon carbide is black. But anyway, this is finishing paper, and it's great stuff, used mostly in woodworking. But I kind of ground on these for a while, but it was going very slowly and getting me frustrated. So I pulled out my Spyderco stones. These are normally joined together. They're glued together, but I separated them and wiped the glue off. And then this is cubic boron nitride in a steel plate. But it's flat and it's small and it's easy to handle. So what the hell? I'm going to ruin the ladder Damascus finish, but this was going to grind it. So I got this on, put it flat on the edge, and then turned it up just a little bit so that it wasn't totally grinding out the face of the blade, and trying to thin the bevels. So then I went at it. Grind, grind, grind. Turn it over, grind, grind, grind. And then once I'd done that for about 20 minutes, it took a lot of grinding. I mean, there's a lot of steel to remove there. Then I went on to this knife and did the same thing. Grind, grind, grind. It took me much longer than I thought it would take. I thought maybe 5 minutes. Nah, it took me more like half an hour per knife. But then I'd also put scratches in the face and scratches all over the place and made a mess of it. So how was I going to get rid of those? I wasn't going to put it on a belt sander. Not that I have one, but I wouldn't put it on that anyway. These sort of jobs are not done with power tools, in my opinion. These are jobs that you have to finish by hand, and it takes longer, but the result is different and better, much better in my opinion. Still a place for hand sharpening. So once I'd finished with the cubic boron nitride and put scratches all over the place, how was I going to get rid of those? Well, I moved on to this diamond film. This is, I believe it's, I think it's 15 micron 3M diamond film. It's the orange one. And I have this applied to glass. And what is great about this, I put a drop of oil on it. So I just put oil on it like that. And then the good thing about this is that I can actually see through the glass. So I don't know if I can show this in the camera, but here it is. You can see the oil is up on the face, and then as I turn it in, the oil goes right to the edge. And as I start to work it, it spreads around a bit, and I can actually get very accurately where I want to grind. So grind, and I thinned the back part of the bevel and did a lot of that. And once I'd finished with the diamond film, which often leaves very deep grooves, I moved on to this aluminum oxide film. This is actually 30 micron, which is actually bigger than the 15 micron diamond film, but the aluminum oxide abrasive is much softer than the diamond, and turns out it polishes out the diamond scratches pretty easily. And again, you can see that I can get the oil there, and I can literally just rotate it right in. So holding it in my hand, finger under the blade here, I can just go right in there and go at it. Now I can scrub this because I'm not actually going onto the blade. If I actually got toward the edge, I'm not going onto the edge. As I go toward the edge, I have to be more careful, because then it's very easy to cut into the mylar backing. But for the most part, at least with 30 micron, it's still pretty tough, so I'm not going to do too much harm. When we get to the finer grits, like 5 micron stuff, then it's very easy to cut into the mylar, because there's no abrasive on the surface to protect the mylar underneath. Anyway, this is what I did. So slowly but surely, again, this is quite a lot of grinding, but here we are. I kept going at it, and got the bevel ground way back, and then slowly ease it onto the edge. So it's a convex edge. It's a convex bevel. It's the opposite of what I like for a razor, where I like the edge to be super thin. But the super thin edge is nice and flexible, and it flexes around my beard, and so I can cut those whiskers very nicely. With wood, different story. First of all, it doesn't complain that it hurts. And second, it needs to be robust so that it doesn't simply fold over a delicate edge and make the cutting edge useless. So there we are. I did the diamond film. Here's actually a piece of replacement film that I'm going to put on this 30 micron aluminum abrasive. I'm going to actually put a diamond abrasive on here so that I can use it for cutting after I use the cubic boron nitride. And then what did I do? Well, then I went on to this 5 micron diamond. This is the pink 3M diamond lapping film from about I think it's 3 microns. Anyway, this polishes out any scratches from the previous abrasives. So here you can see I work it here, and I can actually see any scratches by putting it in the light like this. I have a light over there, and it's very easy to see the scratches, and I can be rubbing it and then literally just hone in right onto the scratches. Just by turning the blade slightly, I get the abrasives rubbing on the scratches, mostly just to remove more of the bevel, to thin it out. So there we are. That's the 5 micron. And then I had some 0.5 micron. Yeah, this is 0.3 aluminum oxide. This is great because if ever there are any burrs on the edge, the aluminum oxide is a softer abrasive than the diamond. So it really doesn't make a burr like diamonds. Diamonds cut so deeply that they really just push the metal off the edge, and it ends up as a burr. Aluminum oxide is softer, and so it cuts a shallower groove, and anyway, it seems to work, or at least I use it for polishing out diamond diamond scratches. So here I'm going to wipe this off so that there's no grit left behind. The best cleaning material, toilet paper. And then I get my 0.3 micron aluminum abrasive, put a drop or two of oil on it, and then I can literally just polish this out. Goes very nicely. So I keep doing that until it's all done, and you can see even with a few passes like that, I've got a stripe of swarf in there. So even at 3 microns, it still polishes. Now I suspect that I did not actually polish the edge in those. I was still polishing the bevel. So I'm going to raise the edge a little bit here and put a couple of passes right on the edge. And seeing I've done that, I've probably created a slight bow. I'm going to do that on the other side. There we are, raised it just enough to get onto the edge. Light strokes, no force, because any high pressure actually bends the fine edge. You don't want to do that. I mean, this is more robust than a razor, but it's still, we're talking about a very fine edge here. So there we are. I went with that and finished with a 3M with the aluminum oxide film, and then I had to polish out all the scratches. I think actually I removed the scratches before I did the final sharpening of the edges. But here I have my backing. This is a nice Arkansas stone. It's a translucent Arkansas stone which I have flattened. But as it was nearby, it's a good flat surface to work on. And this is wonderful stuff. This is emery paper. There's something about emery paper. This is what they call it 240 grit. I think this is probably a Norton product. But the emery paper has grit that's a variety of sizes and shapes and hardnesses. It's sort of a mixture of natural grits. So it's closer to using, say, a fancy Japanese natural. But this paper works really nicely for polishing the edge, for polishing out the scratches on the faces. So I get it on the edge like this so that I don't run the handle into the edge, and then put the face on the thing, then turn it up slightly, and then I can literally just keep working this to polish those bevels and get rid of all the scratches. Anyway, that's what I did. Now I put new scratches in it here, which you may or may not be able to see, but near the edge, on the back of the bevel here, there are new scratches because of the way I put it there. So how do I get rid of those? Well, with my finger. Yes, my finger with a little protection. First of all, I look at it. This is my 5 times magnifying glass, and the great thing about it is that it's got a little LED light in it, and I can literally look at the blade like that, and with 5 times magnification I can turn the edge up right and look at it straight on, and with the LED light on it I can see if there's any flat spot on the edge, on the top. If there is, then I have to go back to grinding it out. If I turn the blade slightly sideways, then it shows up all the scratches on the bevel. And whatever the case, this is a very useful tool. It's more useful than the unlit ones, which you then have to fiddle around to try and find a light source and get it to reflect, and it's more difficult to see. This with its own bright light source is great. I don't turn it off in between every time because it's on and off and on and off. I probably wear out the switch more than I wear out the batteries because it's a little tiny LED light. But then, to polish both of these, you can see, both of them had to be polished. This thing got really scratched up with all the especially this thing, the cubic boron nitride. But I got this piece of leather. This is, well, it feels stiff. I think this is probably horse leather. Anyway, it's pretty robust. I don't use my really good leather, which is the cordovan, and mostly cow leather is a bit too soft. So horse leather is great. I like it. And then I've got some of this paste. This is flex cut gold. Anyway, it's a paste, and I rub it on. So I rub it onto the surface here, and then it gives me just enough abrasive to be able to polish the edge. So then I come in, and with my finger I can polish the bevel. And what I'm doing is I'm literally blending the back of the bevel into the edge so that you almost can't see where the bevel starts. It rounds the edge and polishes it. So here. And again, as I'm polishing it, I can turn the blade slightly just to hone in where it's polishing. Now I have to be a little bit careful with this because this edge is pretty sharp. And if I turn it up too much, it'll bite into the leather, and that's, well, then it means I get another nick in the leather. Not that it matters much with this, but for the most part, I've got a good feel for it. Anyway, it polishes out the remaining scratches, and the emery paper does a fabulous job of preparing the surface for polishing. So there we are. I can still see some streaky marks along here, but those will polish out pretty quickly with the abrasive in the paste. So here you can see I'm polishing it out, and I'm edging towards the edge, and bit by bit it's coming in. Well, I don't want to get too close to that edge because otherwise I'm going to maybe cut my fingers or something. But here we are. I'm just polishing it out, and any remaining tiny little bits of burr, this as I push this along the edge, it'll take them right out. So there it is. And so then I can wipe off the blade, and well, I've pretty much finished this blade. I did it before I started, and you can see I've lost the Damascus pattern, but it's all still in the steel. But I've got a beautiful smooth edge and a much better geometry, so that this is actually now a really useful knife. So instead of being a decorative piece that's been sitting around in my drawer for 40 years or so, it's now going to be a user. Now, how am I going to bring out this pattern again? Well, I could always dip it in acid, put it in ferric chloride and etch it out, but I don't want to do that. So what I'm doing is I'm going to wait, because Emiliano Carrillo is making me a knife, and he has a lot of experience in getting these finishes right. He's using mahogany steel for a knife that he's making me, and he knows how to polish it so that it shows the different contrast, or it shows contrast between the different types of steel. And I think when he comes here, I'm going to bend his ear and see if he will help me work out how to polish this so that it works perfectly. Maybe I have to get a Japanese renge suite or some fancy Japanese stone to be able to rub it that will separate the different steels. I don't know. I will know soon. In the meantime, there it is. 2 really nice knives, and for cutting wood, I don't think I can do better. Certainly nicer than a Sloyd knife for $15 on Amazon. And well, these were more expensive than that, but they are very good steel. They're good shapes. They've got great geometry, great edges now, and I think they're going to make very nice tools for my application. All right, enough. Goodbye.